Terrence James, and you're watching another episode of Neutral Reviews, where we do real reviews for real decisions. And today, we are looking at the 2022 Subaru BRZ. And I have borrowed the keys for this vehicle from Subaru of London. That's a fantastic location, welcoming atmosphere, friendly service, and who also offers some of the most fun and safe practical vehicles on the road today, including this one. Now, this review is going to be a little bit different today because I am the potential buyer. I am looking to either trade my 2020 RS for this 2022. Now, the BRZ FRS and Toyota 86 came out for the 2013 model year and won over both enthusiasts and journalists alike. And that's because Toyota and Subaru gave us a no-nonsense sports car with near Cayman handling, 2 extra seats, and half the price. But they forgot to put an engine in it. So they skipped the 2021 model year and went straight for 2022, where they did give us that extra engine, but we also got a GT car in return. So we look at the facts, feels, and final thoughts of the 2022 Subaru BRZ to see which one I like better. Do I like the functional aero, more power, but that Lexus more experience? Or do I like my 2020 BRZ RS with that RS performance package, 90s rawness, but also happens to be a vehicle that can't beat a soccer mobile in a drag race? So let's take a look. Now, the BRZ is Subaru's dedicated rear-wheel drive sports car, and along with the WRX, is going to be one of its flagship vehicles. And in Canada, it comes in 2 different trims, starting with a base BRZ that's going to have 17-inch wheels, cloth interior, that's going to come in around $30,495 Canadian, plus fees and taxes, as they say, on the straight pipes. And you can get all the way up to $33,495 for a Sport-tech like this, which is going to give you 18-inch wheels and premium interior. Now, both trims do come standard with a 6-speed manual transmission, and for a couple $1,000s more, you can upgrade, if you want to call it that, to that automatic. And keep in mind, that is also the only other way that you're going to be able to get those eyesight safety features if you want them. Now, all trims also come with wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, no navigation, and LED lights. And if you want the fancy LED lights that turn around the corners with you, you're going to have to get that Sport-tech. Now, Subaru did give us a well-built, well-priced little sports car, so let's talk competition. Now, we had mentioned the Cayman, but realistically, the competition for this vehicle, aside from its mechanical twin, the GR86, is going to be that ND2 Mazda Miata. And that is because the Mazda Miata, yes, it is a little bit smaller than this, but it's in the same type of category. You're missing those back seats, not quite as usable of a trunk, but what you're going to get in return is a convertible. And with that said, the convertible and these cars are approximately the same price. But if you want to do a real comparison, hardtop to hardtop, then you're going to be around the $40,000 mark for that ND2 Miata, which is a lot of money and not quite the same in comparison, but it's still decently priced, and why it's in the comparison. And for the very first time, the Subaru BRZ can beat that ND2 Miata in a race. So let's talk performance. Now, the 2022 Subaru BRZ uses essentially my 2-liter Subaru Boxer 4-cylinder engine, still with Toyota's port and direct injection system, but they bored it out to 2.4 liters this time to give you 228 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque, which is 23 more horsepower than mine and 28 pound-feet more of torque, which is capable of rocketing this 2,800 pound stretch Miata from 0 to 60 in around 5.4 seconds, which is around a second faster than mine. Does the quarter mile in 13.9 seconds at the top speed of 140 miles per hour. Now, you're also going to look at around 22 miles per gallon combined on this, which is a couple miles per gallon worse for mine to get that extra power, but still not too bad. Now, also, all that power has to run through a transmission. And as we said, both trims come with a 6-speed manual transmission, which is an excellent transmission, but what they did was small improvements for this year. They tried to make it, with some ball bearings, some other things, a little bit more engaging and smoother shifting. I don't notice a huge difference, to be honest with you, but that is what they did. Now, all that power keeps running all the way to the rear, hence the BRZ, which is your Boxer rear-wheel drive Zenith. And all that power to help get on the road goes through a Torsen limited slip differential, with my car has as well, and works really, really well on a small car like this. Now, also, we have to talk about steering. So steering on here, again, same electronic unit that I have, but they moved it on the rack and a few other little changes. But I do find a little bit of a difference. Now, it's still an excellent steering compared to most cars out there, including sports cars. However, I don't find that it communicates quite as well as mine, but it still has that very, very quick 13:1 steering ratio. So it's got a very, very fast rack, and it has to steer these wheels and tires. And that is, again, where you're going to see a bit of a difference. Now, even on my RS package, I only have 17-inch rims. They are wider than the normal ones that are on the BRZ. However, they are not as big or as wide as these 18-inch that come on the Sport-tech here. Now, I do like the appearance of mine a little bit better. I think they look a little bit more expensive, but these are better performers, and including those tires, because you have these two 1540 Michelin Sport 4 tires on here. So you've got a pretty sticky tire, summer tire on here as well. Now we have to stop. So it still uses 2 piston brake calipers in the front and 1 piston brake calipers in the rear, where my car has that big brake kit through Brembo. So I got 4 piston in the front and 2 piston in the rear. And this has about 11.5-inch vented discs, and mine are 12.5 basically. So also you gotta have suspension. So it's pretty much unchanged as far as the main structure. You still have strut in the front, and you got multi-link in the rear. But what they've done this year is they've taken the sway bar and mounted it to the body to make it even more stable at higher speeds. And also what they have done as well is on mine, they have given you Sachs dampers. So those Sachs performance dampers make a huge difference. The car holds really, really tight around corners, yet is very, very compliant over bumps. Now I do have to say, we'll talk about it more in the feels portion, the tuning that they have done on the base suspension is excellent and isn't a lot different than mine, if I am fair, but you do notice that difference as well. But that is partly because of some of the chassis enhancements. So let's talk chassis. It uses the same bespoke rear-wheel drive chassis or platform that I have. However, over the years with their global platform that they use in pretty much all other vehicles, they have done really, really big enhancements in production over the years, which have been infused now in the 2nd generation here. Now, to be fair, I also have some of those as well. Now, what we're also looking at this chassis as well, which makes it so good, is that rigidity. Now, mine is known as a very rigid chassis, but this is actually 60% stiffer in certain areas, especially from side to side, which is a big deal. Also, when we're looking at this chassis here, it's very, very balanced. You have almost perfect side to side balance, 50-50, and near 50-50 front to back. And Subaru actually doesn't make it quite 50-50 because it makes it even better on the driving dynamic. And when we're looking at this as well, when we're talking about that, it also has a very, very low center of gravity. This car here has an even lower center of gravity than mine. I think it's mainly marketing, because they said that they lowered the license plate in the back and have a lighter roof and things like that. However, pretty much it's the same, because that engine sits so low in the chassis. It is pretty much a front mid-engine car. Also, when we're talking that chassis, it is 2+2 setup, so it does make a little bit more practical than that Cayman or that Mazda Miata as well. You're looking at about a 101.2-inch wheelbase, which is actually smaller than that Jaguar F-Type that we reviewed not that long ago. Also, when we're talking quietness, I couldn't get the actual noise or the decibel levels, but I can say, as we said in the introduction, that I really like the 90s rawness of mine. My car is extremely loud, and that's what I like. Where this is as quiet, within reason, as pretty much any modern car that I've been in. So keep that in mind as well. And when we're looking at the chassis, when we're looking at the drag coefficient, it is about the same as before. So you're looking at about 0.28. So it's a pretty slippery little car as well. Now, when we come back here, I see 2 giant exhausts, and they sound like this. Not bad. And I do not believe that Subaru or Toyota recommends attaching any active urban lifestyle to the back of your Subaru BRZ. So let's talk cargo. In the cargo space of the 2022 Subaru BRZ is around the same as mine, which is about 6 cubic feet of space when those seats are up, which isn't great, but it's still more than that Mazda Miata. And the real claim to fame for this vehicle is when those when those back seats go down, because as you can see, there is a lot of space in there when you consider that. But the most important thing is, does it pass the Canadian cargo test? Because in Canada, you never know when a game of road hockey is going to break out, and you always want to make sure that you're prepared. So here we go. And as you can see, it fits in there just nice. But as we said in a recent HRV review, if yours is Zano Chara, maybe not. But for most people, you're going to be able to fit your hockey stick and your hockey bag in there just fine. But It is also important, if you're crazy like me, if it passes the midlife crisis test, because I'm using this as a second family vehicle, and you're going to want to make sure that your baby seat fits. And as you can see, it does fit in there just fine. And if you are the appropriate age for this car and you like to take it to the track, you also want to see if it passes the Canadian winter test. And as you can see, it does. It can fit, just like the marketing says, all 4 spare tires in there that you can either use for the winter or take to the track. And you can even fit some tools and some lunch. So let's take a peek at the back and see how the people fare back there who get stuffed. Now we're talking the back seats of the Subaru BRZ. There's not a lot going on back here, and that's because I don't think they've ever really intended for people to go back here. However, there is, as you can see, a decent amount of space within reason for such a small vehicle. Yes, I am only 5'7" and 150 pounds, but again, if you just got smaller adults or kids or people that don't complain a lot, you can stuff them back here. The real problem isn't so much the leg and the height room and things like that. It really comes to the fact that you've got nowhere to stick your feet, and it makes it unusable, especially with mine. But it does seem like this one is a little bit better. Now, part of the reason they do that is because this is primarily a driver's car, and it is one with a very low center of gravity. So they place these seats very, very low in the chassis, but that also eliminates toe room. But as I said, this one back here does seem to be a little bit better. But it's always been about the driving up front. So let's take a look up front. Now, as you're crawling into the front, literally, in this car, one of the first things that you're going to notice when you get in it is these seats and this amazing low center of gravity. As you can see, you're pretty much sitting on the floor. No, it's not an F1 car, but for affordable sports car, this is pretty much in line with the Cayman if you've ever sat in one for seating position. Now, these seats here, pretty much the identical seats as mine. You got manual adjustment, really good bolstering. I like the choice of material. I have Alcantara, but they've kind of put this perforated looking material here in the middle of the seats, Alcantara style, which I quite like, but really it's pretty much the same seat, which is not a bad thing. And one of the things with these seats too, which is nice, is you can take the top headrest off, so if you're using a helmet on track, you have a little bit more room as well. And then when we come over to the steering wheel, this is one of the things that I like between both cars, it's the same steering wheel, is that it's a smaller diameter steering wheel, much like that Mazda Miata, and that's a sports car thing. Of course, you've got your buttons on here to work your infotainment and some of your information in here and things like that. And as we say that as well, this digital gauge is nice. All these cars are going to digital gauges. I prefer my analog gauge and a nice center mounted tack, analog tack like a Porsche. However, this is the way things are going. The only complaint that I have with this is the fact that it doesn't look that great. It's not that shiny, bright and crisp. So if you're going to put one of these in, I would prefer that you go and do a really good job with it. And that's the same with this infotainment over here as well. Yes, it's an inch bigger than mine. You got an 8-inch over a 7-inch. But this screen, again, does not look quite as bright and crisp as mine. So I'd personally rather have an inch smaller, and mine looks better integrated as well. And again, that's my opinion. I also wanted to mention that the steering wheel here is manual telescoping and tilting. And I really love the angle of it. It is very sporty. It is the opposite of a school bus. It's very upright. It's hard to get used to, but once you do, you won't go back. It's like this driving position. And also, when we talk about interior here, they've kept the same basic functions, ergonomics over here for your heating and ventilation, and some of these looks like toggle switches, but they've really upgraded it a lot because this looks a lot more like a Lexus type vehicle in here, and that's that Toyota influence. So they look good, they feel good, and they work really, really well. The only thing that I have to say with the interior that I find a little bit surprising is they seem to go to two extremes. They have really, really nice materials in here, or they have really, really cheap. And in real life, that contrast is quite stark, again, in my opinion, whereas mine has just pretty much medium materials. Yes, there is a bit of a contrast, but it doesn't seem to be quite as stark as this. You still have nice door cards in here, so where you can fit decent sized water bottles. You've got a decent sized glove compartment for a smaller car. And one of the things that I really like is this middle section here that I have as well, but mine's convertible style. It's all open. This has a nice little lid that you can close, so you can rest your arm on it, which matches well over here with the armrest on the door. But most importantly, they have moved the two USB ports over into here. So one, you can keep stuff concealed and plugged in. And number two is you don't have this pesky wire here in your way around your shifter, because most people are going to use Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which this has, and especially this one because there is no navigation. But the most important thing with this car has always been the driving experience. So let's take it for a drive and see how it feels. right, here's where we do our quick turnaround test like we've missed the exit for the Old Guy Driving Young Guys car convention. Here we go. Try to go as fast as we can. We do not want to miss that, because there is a lot of us there. And that wasn't too bad. Okay, and here's where we do our quick backup test like we want to get one of those last spots in front of the convention. So here we go. We're trying to go as fast as we can. As you see, we got dynamic lines. I don't think mine has it. I should remember. Yeah, that wasn't too bad. Okay, here's where we do our handling test and go way faster than you ever need to on a public road. But here we go. This is just a little driveway thing. So we do have it in track mode. Oh, those tires hold really good. And as you can see, that held really, really good. Okay, and here's where we do our traffic light Grand Prix acceleration test like we missed a garage sale down the street. So here we go. So I've got it in, like I said, there's no real track mode on this aside from changing some of the parameters of your stability and your traction. So what I've done is I've actually turned everything completely off, which also gives you the same gauge cluster here for track. Okay, so we're not going to dump the clutch because this is a saleable car, but we are going to give it some gusto. So here we go. So as you can see, that feels definitely like 5-point-something seconds, that's for sure. Probably closer to 5. Okay, and here's where we do our emergency style brake type test, and we hope all those antiques we bought don't fly up here. Okay, here we go. Same thing, basically just in reverse. Give it some gusto. Oh, that feels good. Okay, we're gonna go hard on the brakes in a sec, and here we go. Ooh. No Brembos, but I gotta tell you, to be fair, that feels pretty good. And when we talk styling of the new 2022 Subaru BRZ, I'm really divided. And I'm divided because I absolutely love the new look. I love that functional aero. I love the overall shape. I love the look. The only thing that I don't like is the fact that it's not as unique as mine. It's basically the exact same car, but just the way that they've skinned this new one, to me, and a lot of the features they've added, like the lights front and rear, to me it has lost a lot of its uniqueness. It's a great looking car, but to me the back end looks like an Acura NSX or a lot of new Honda products. The front end looks very Porsche to me, and on that GR86, which I actually prefer the look to, especially for the front, they're basically the same. But that front grille, again, it's awesome, but it looks very much like the new Nissan Z, so it's a bit copying. Whereas my car looks long and flat and a very unique look. It's still a very good looking one, and I like the way that they've given you 18-inch wheels without having to go up to the TS on this one, because I could get 18s, but I had to go up to the TS, and I tried to go to the TS, but it was a limited edition and all that kind of stuff. Now when we come into here, this is a lot of what we were complaining about, and not necessarily complaining in the look. I like the fact that it looks like a Lexus in here. The only thing that I don't like is it also rides like a Lexus, in the sense that my car is like a 90s sports car. It's very loud, engine, road noise, all that stuff. When you're in the rain, it sounds like you're in a tent. You can hear the rain hit. I really like that. This car is the complete opposite of that. This really feels like any modern car out there. It is very, very quiet. This person here has disabled the fake engine noise, so you can really tell about how much more sound deadening this has in it, because you can barely hear the engine, whereas mine is very, very loud. A lot of people don't like the sound of it, say it sounds like a garbage disposal, but at least it's raw and real. And again, when we look at this infotainment, yeah, it's an inch bigger than mine, 7 to 8 inches, but it kind of looks tacked on here in Fisher-Price with this matte looking material, and it's and the actual screen itself is the same as mine as far as the user interface, and it's still really responsive and things like that, but you know, it's not as crisp and clear. So to me, I'd rather have it an inch smaller and have it look a little bit more expensive, because I'm not using it a lot anyway. And as we said, you get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto across the board and no navigation nowadays. And when we come down here, your heating and ventilation, these toggle type switches are the same as they've always been, but they look a lot nicer. They're a lot more like the Lexus now. Also, what I want to mention too is the steering wheel hasn't really changed a lot as far as the physical steering wheel, but they did change that rack a little bit. I can't really notice a difference, to be honest with you. As far as what you can notice though is that extra rigidity and those wider tires on here. This car feels very planted and very firm. So does mine with those Sachs dampers, and mine is known for excellent handling, but it's hard to explain. This feels like that Honda Civic Type R when I said that it was serious. It really just has a serious feel to it. It's very, very firm and stiff. That's all I can say. Now, as far as the acceleration goes, well, it is absolutely night and day, if I'm fair. Now, I'm not a big track person just because I don't live close to one, but I have done some spirited driving, and really when you're in that upper rev range, you're not going to notice any difference between the two cars within reason. Where you notice it is in town here, and it's night and day. It's absolutely night and day. This feels like what the car always should. It feels like it's as fast in a straight line as a Civic Type R, which it basically is, 5.4 seconds, things like that. And that is really, really where you notice it. There is so much more low-end power on this car, and it makes it a lot of fun. And the braking, of course. Now, of course, this doesn't have the big brake kit like mine and the Brembos and all that stuff. But considering they've tuned it really well, to me, when you're daily driving, I don't notice the difference between this and my Brembos, really. Like, they're really, really well tuned. Under hard braking, again, I don't have exact measurements that I've tested myself, but how the acceleration between the two cars is night and day. The braking, obviously, is night and day. Mine is that much better than this. But for a base car, this is absolutely incredible. It works really, really well. They've done a good job in that regard. And the only other thing that we want to mention in here is the horn for our subscription shout-out, Neutral Reviews subscription shout-out, a little Subaru horn there for you. And the only other thing to mention is the stereo system in here. We always talk about how we don't really get into that. I do think that I read that this has got 2 more speakers than my RS. Again, negligible difference. They both sound terrible. But, you know, when I say terrible, it's everyday terrible. It's not that bad like an older car. It's just compared to some of these with the premium sound systems and things like that, it's not that. But for a base car, it's okay. Which leads me to my final thoughts. Now, if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on your notifications, and check out one of our other small sports car reviews so we can get more cool cars like this one and our upcoming review on a car that I have not secured yet. So, we started off this review by looking to see which one I like better, the 2022 Subaru BRZ or my 2020 Subaru BRZ Sport-tech RS. And here are the facts and feels that we used to come up with this final thought. Which is, I do love the functional aero, more power, but to overcome that more Lexus experience and losing out on my 90s rawness, I am gonna need to see another RS package on a second generation BRZ. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.